Welcome to Perimeter Institute's Inspiring Future Women in Science live Q&A. My name is Kelly Foyle, and I'm a physicist and a member of Perimeter's Educational Outreach team. Tomorrow is the United Nations International Day of Women and Girls in Science. To celebrate this day, we've gathered 4 panelists, and they're joining us from 4 different cities in 2 countries. And we also have students registered to join us from 20 countries. We're pleased to welcome Linamar Corporation as the presenting sponsor of today's event. Based in Guelph, Linamar is an advanced manufacturing company who has been the presenting sponsor of this conference since 2017. Linda Hasenfratz is the CEO of Linamar, and we are excited to have her joining us today, and we look forward to hearing her remarks at the end of today's event. Today, I am speaking to you from Perimeter Institute, located in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. And as such, in the spirit of respect and reconciliation, I acknowledge that Perimeter Institute is located upon lands that have been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. In particular, we acknowledge the Haldimand Tract, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and neutral peoples. Wherever you are in the world, I encourage you to consider who has come before you and the impact of their actions and actions taken towards them, as well as the potential of your actions to build a more inclusive future for everyone. This event is really about you and your questions. So I really encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity and to participate in order to make this discussion a success. So you can enter your questions at any time using the Q&A tool, and you can upvote questions as well that are of most interest to you. So we'll be taking your questions throughout the event. But to get us started, I'd like to welcome our panelists to each introduce themselves. So let's have them all here. Awesome. Laurie, let's get started. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everybody. My name is Laurie Rousseau-Nepton. I'm very happy to be with you today and answer all of your questions. I am an astronomer working at the Canada-France-Hawaii telescope. And the telescope here is located on the Mauna Kea, which is a sacred site for the Native Hawaiian here. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Laurie. We're going to ask Ella now, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, my name is Ella. I am a science communicator who's been running a YouTube channel called Sci-Files since I was 12 years old. So I've been trying to encourage kids, both women and girls and anyone, to really get interested in science and to explore science and technology through hands-on activities. Currently, I'm in medical school at UBC in Vancouver.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily Ackerman. I am a postdoctoral researcher at Harvard Medical School. I am also on Future of Research's board, where we work on projects that advance the scientific environment. So I work on making labor conditions better for grad students and postdoctoral researchers in my spare time. Oh, and I'm also, if I can add, a disabled researcher. So I do a lot of activism around disability and STEM in my free time as well.
Great. And last but not least, Yumna?
Thank you. And thank you, Perimeter, for having us. And I'm incredibly honored to be on this panel with the caliber of the individuals here. It's kind of remarkable. My name is Yumna Nasser. I'm the National Director of Operations for the Technology Division at Plan Group. We are a construction company. We build major hospitals. We build major infrastructure all across Canada. And I'm happy to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Great. Well, we've already got some questions coming in. The first one that's come in is the question of, did you always want to be in science? Anybody that would like to go first?
I'll go.
Yeah, sure.
So for me, it's a funny question because it's not just science, it's technology, it's engineering, it's math. Within the construction side, you kind of get to experience all of it. And yes, for me, I kind of knew that I wanted to go that way because I was always in love with design and how design impacts people's lives. Like, you know, it could be as simple as design of cars or designs of buildings. designs of websites. It's how people interact with it. So for me, it was that curiosity that got me in here, and I've enjoyed it ever since.
Amazing. Okay. Anybody else would like to add? Lori, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I can add, like, because I remember if I put myself in my mindset when I was a kid, I didn't even know you could be a scientist. It's not necessarily something that was promoted to me. I was good in math, so people were telling me that I should be an accountant, and it actually dragged and followed me a long time. Everybody thought I was going to go in finance, but inside of me, I knew it was different, and my dad and my close family knew, and they all thought I would be something different, like an astronaut or something related to space. So they kind of knew, and it actually helped me to find my way.
Awesome. Emily, Ella, did either of you want to? Yeah.
So I actually did not want to do science. My plan was to do art up until my junior year of high school. I thought I wanted to be in charge of like art museums, curating exhibits, and I decided that I would rather that kind of art side be more of a hobby, and switch to more of a science role. So I do art, when I have time nowadays instead.
Yeah. Ella, did you want to?
Yeah, so I think I've known for a long time that I wanted to go into science. When I was 12, my brother was diagnosed with a kidney condition, so I knew that I was like really interested in medicine and sort of pursuing something that combined the two. And then science communication was just something that I liked to watch myself. And so I remember being like a little kid on YouTube, looking at all the science like experiments that I could do at home. And so that's what really got me excited. So yeah, it's been quite a long journey.
Yeah, I'll just mention to our participants, just as we go on, for those of you who are not sure where the Q&A tool is, at the bottom of your screen in Zoom, you should be able to see a spot on your screen that says Q&A. That's where you can open that up to submit questions. And you can also upvote questions there. As I was listening to the responses, particularly Emily and Yumna, I thought of a question that came in during registration. Because you guys both sort of mentioned other skills, art and design. So the question that came in registration was, are you able to use the non-STEM skills in your career? Has there been an opportunity for you to combine music, art, as part of your career in science? And if others would like to join on that question too, but I thought that could be a nice point to elaborate on based on what you were saying.
I can comment. I think, it's one thing to do science and to, do the best science, but it's really not worth anything if you can't communicate it to people, right? Like people have to understand what you're doing. And so a great way to do that is through the way that you portray it. So whether it's, making your figures look really nice, or creating a video about your research so that people can understand it. There are lots of ways that you can be creative and make things visually appealing that are contributing to science as a whole. So and there are people who just do that as a career, right? They like making art about science, and that's what they do, and they don't make the science themselves. So there's lots of cool things that you can do if you're into that kind of art side of things.
Yumna, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I can definitely add to that. So within the spectrum of facilities management and construction and technology, you get to interact with every aspect. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about is music. And so when we get to build stadiums, especially theaters, it's like bringing those two worlds of what you know from a science and math perspective and combining that and then experiencing it because you're required to actually deliver it. I remember we were just recently at the Niagara Falls Entertainment Center and we were, witnessing our own technology in action and then seeing the lights hearing the sound, just feeling that bass. You get to see your work come to life, and it's about something, that you're passionate about, something that you can touch and feel. And so you really get that aspect in the job. Similar to Emily, I love art as well. And we work with several artists when it comes to things like the Eglinton LRT station, like the crosstown line. We work with several artists to bring them in, post their arts, review their art, figure out how it's going to function, and what messages are being conveyed to the public. So you really do get all those aspects. You can bring your personality into your workspace and make it your own.
We were getting in some more questions coming in. Unless Lori or Ella felt like they wanted to add on that one, maybe I'll go to the next one. Working in STEM, can working in STEM be isolating, and how do you cope with that? So I guess, is it isolating for you? And if it is, how do you deal with that isolation?
I guess I can probably talk about isolation since I'm here on this island in the middle of the Pacific. And yes, I had to move here from Canada. I probably have, and I think I should have introduced myself more properly, but I'm from the East Coast of Canada. I'm from Quebec. I'm a member of the Pequot-Kamilowitz Nation. My family is around that area. And when you pick a career like astronomy, you will have to work elsewhere, often internationally, and you will be far away from everybody. And even through your graduate school, you might feel a little isolated because you're busy doing things and you really need to focus on some of the aspect of your thesis and things like that. How I coped with it was with good relationship with my friends, having like a really strong support from the people around me. And now that I'm here in Hawaii, I have to palliate some of the things that are missing around me. And it's not for everybody, but it is feasible, and it's something that you can really make it work, especially if you just like put some effort and keeping contact with everybody and having visits coming to see you and finding support on site. But it's not easy, definitely.
Anybody else that would like to respond to that?
I think the part of science that I work in is like very different. Instead of sort of working individually, I do a lot of like collaborations with organizations to do science communication. So we make videos together. And so maybe if the research is a bit isolating, there's other ways in STEM where you can interact with other people and have sort of more of a community approach. And so there's always the balance, and maybe there's opportunities to find sort of both sides in the STEAM fields.
I'm just taking a look at some of the other questions, unless Yumna or Emily, you wanted to add to that. The next question that we have is, what advice would you give to female students concerning gender disparities in STEM fields? Or maybe if I were to say it, what advice would you give to people that maybe are concerned that that's maybe a reason that they wouldn't want to go into science because maybe they feel intimidated by that? Laurie, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I'll let Emily go. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Emily. I didn't see you unmute there.
No problem.
Yeah.
I think coming from chemical engineering, which is a fairly heavily male field, although one of the more equitable engineerings. My graduate degree department, I think we had 4 female professors, so pretty small number in comparison. But I think you feel a very strong sense of community, no matter how many of you there are. I think you can connect on that level and really feel like you're not alone. I think that there are ways to connect over other things as well. It's not really as apparent as you might think it would be in your everyday life. You kind of just get used to it. And I always think about it as being there is contributing to that community for other people as well. So, you know, you're never alone, essentially.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if I may add, when I was a student, there was a couple of years where I was the only woman in the student group. And yes, I would feel some pressure, performance pressure. Also, I would be a little bit more shy in contributing, just being like feeling the fear of, if I talk too much during a discussion or during a meeting, I'm going to be perceived in a negative way. And you always have these voices in your head that are really annoying, and they should not be there, basically, because you are a very valuable member of your team, and your voice and your presence is so important. But if you're isolated, you might feel these. And as Emily said, I think the best way to feel better is to find connections with other people. If you don't have other members of your team that you can associate with, that you can feel like you have a connection, then find it in another group or somewhere close, so that you can talk to someone, and just make sure that you don't stay alone with those voices in your head that are wrong.
Yeah, definitely sharing with others is so important. And that's part of the reason for sharing your stories today, as well from your experience. I'm curious, maybe you wanted to add on that as working maybe outside of academia, like in industry, maybe as a contrast to the stories that we've heard on this issue.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, it is a heavily male-dominated industry, no doubt about it. But the way I look at it is, if you know, it's going to sound cliche, but if you truly love what you do, and if you're truly passionate about it, why would you let somebody else's gender or not seeing another gender stop you? And you also have to think about it in a way that's, you know, leading the path, because I'm sure there's other individuals that want to partake and are thinking and having the same thoughts, but you got to be the one to step up, and you have to be the one to be there to lead the path, because that's only going to open or help open doors for others. So I would never let, just because you don't see something that, you know, looks like you, stop you from fulfilling, you know, your journey. Because if you truly are passionate about it, just go and do it. I don't have any special kind of, you know, magic wand type of advice to how you deal with this. You kind of have to go through the motions of it. Again, it's because you love what you do. For me, the way I kind of, you know, what helps me manage is just a group of good friends. And I have a lot of girlfriends within the construction industry. And as Emily was, you know, mentioning earlier, like there is a very, very special bond. I always joke about, you know, you need to have that group of girlfriends that can go out for drinks, go out for dinner for 4 hours and just talk about concrete, because you just need to get it out of your system. And so long as you have that available to you, it makes the world of a difference. So connecting with the individuals that you do see, and, you know, kind of reaching out to them will not just help you, but it will help them too, and just give you that stronger foundation on who to talk to, who to connect with, and just bounce ideas off of each other. Because most of the time, that's all you really need. You just need that sanity check to go, am I interpreting in this the right way? You know, is there a different approach, different perspective to this? And then you go on about it. Like I said, there's not really a special answer. It is dominated, but we're making active changes to help move that along. On my team alone right now, I have females, designers, engineers that are coming on the team, and we're so excited. And we're happy to have this team grow, because like coming together again as a team of women is exciting. We get to bounce ideas in different ways. And honestly, we bring a different picture, a different aspect to the core of the group that exists. And they're also very thankful for it, because again, the more individuals you can have at looking at different things in different ways, the better the project becomes, right? So that's my 2 cents on construction and facilities.
The next question that we got, unless anybody wanted to add, was what advice would you give someone who isn't sure what career they want to go into? And what is it okay to switch paths along the way? Ella, maybe since you're kind of closest to making the decision of the career path, was it a difficult choice for you? How did you?
Yeah, I can talk about that for sure. So when I was in high school, I knew that I wanted to go into science, and that was like basically all that I had figured out. But then once I got into university, I realized you had to pick like what type of science, that it wasn't just like one category, and you couldn't do necessarily like everything. And I wanted to do everything, so I really had to narrow it down. And for me, that meant really talking to different people in the fields that I was interested in. So for a while, I was really interested in maybe going into math. And so I talked to a lot of my math professors to see what that was like. And I talked to a lot of my chemistry professors and my biology professors. And so I really tried to reach out to those around me, those who were older than me, to help me decide on what major I wanted to pick. And so in the end, I picked pharmacology, which is kind of a combination. You get some of that chemistry. There's also some math involved, and a lot of biology. And so that's what I decided to do for my undergraduate degree. And then the decision to switch from pursuing more of an academic science career path to a medical career path was also a tricky decision. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. But for me, I realized that I really liked like talking to patients and like finding out information about each individual person. And so that was sort of the thing that swayed me to go into pursue medicine. And so my big advice would really be to reach out to everyone around you. People really like talking about their careers, or at least that's what I found. And so don't feel shy about asking others for their advice and opinions.
Anybody else would like to add to that about uncertainty and knowing what you want to do? Did anybody else experience that when they were choosing their programs?
I would say that you don't need to know what you want to do. It's totally fine to make changes. A really great part about science and doing research is that, we like to ask big questions, solve problems, and maybe the question you want to answer doesn't, there's a better way to do it that a chemist would use or that a biologist would use. You can always learn new things. You can meet new people that know how to do those things. And so, we like to think like, oh, I'm going to pick this career, this like chemistry or whatever, and I'm going to do it forever. But the reality is that we kind of switch between things when we want to answer certain questions. So, I made a switch from engineering to systems biology recently in my most recent career move. And it's just because it's a field that better addresses the questions I'm interested in. And so, there was no paperwork to fill out. It was just one day I was a systems biologist, so you never have to just like pick one thing and do it forever. It's definitely not as rigid as that.
Anybody else would like to add on that one, or? Actually, we have a question here for Lori. Did you consider being an astronaut instead of an astronomer? And what was that decision process like?
Yeah, no, I was not going to be an astronaut. I love doing research, analyzing data behind my computer. I am amazed by people that do go for astronaut because of the risks that are associated with their job, and also the amount of time that they have to invest in it. So for me, astronomy was the right choice just because of the sense of curiosity. I really am like an observer. Even in my day-to-day life, I just spend so much time observing things around me, and I use it as an observer for astronomy. So now working at a telescope, I help other people finding interesting things in their data that they didn't necessarily think about. And I use those skills, but yeah, definitely not an astronaut.
We actually also had a question in registration asking the difference between an astronomer and astrophysicist. So maybe we can clarify the astronaut,
Yeah.
astronomer, and astrophysicist.
Astronomer and astrophysicist are the same thing to me. They are just two ways of just naming my job. And astronaut is definitely someone who is involved in space mission. So physically going into space and sending human in space. And so they might not be necessarily specialized in astronomy, although a lot of them are. Some are also specialized in medicine and other in engineering, and so an astronaut can have a lot of tools in their box. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Another question we have is, how do you keep yourself motivated and cope with burnout? I want to feel like tackling that one.
I mean, it's a very difficult question, especially again, if you truly love what you do, you're going to keep wanting to do it. You're going to keep wanting to put that time in. And a lot of the times, again, I'll go back to if you love what you do, it doesn't feel like you're working, right? Because to Lori's point, it's that curiosity. And the curiosity kind of just keeps you going. And you don't feel it as a burnout kind of sensation. But with all that being said, I have realized that you do actively need to take the time out. You need to go away, you need to go on vacation, and you need to make the time to go see your family and your friends, because that's what's going to keep your ideas fresh. That's what's going to keep you engaged for the long term and give you a point to reflect on what it is that you're doing as well. So it's different for everyone. There's not one way to go on about this. You just kind of have to find what works best for you. That's my take on it.
Yeah, Ella, I feel like the reputation of pre-med is one of very stressful and students burning out. Do you have any comments on that experience from that perspective?
Yeah, I think that what's already been said a lot of times about like finding something that you're really interested in doing is something that I definitely used as a strategy. So for me, I didn't really volunteer that much at hospitals, and I didn't really have like a traditional, I guess, pre-med application. Instead, I just focused on sort of continuing the work that I was already doing. So a lot of science communication, and it was just something that I was really excited about. And so I felt like I didn't, I guess, feel as much pressure about like what I was doing because it was something that I enjoyed. And so for people who are interested in going into medicine, I wouldn't be, I guess, extremely worried about having the same application as everybody else, because I think that in the end, it's really great if you find something that you're passionate about and you're not looking for one specific type of person. And so that's what I kept reminding myself sort of as I was kind of applying to medical school and all of that, to just sort of pick something that I enjoyed doing and not just something that I wanted to do to fit an application box.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Lori?
Yeah, I can add something, but everybody is different. Everybody's brain is different. You have to kind of learn to read in your brain and what is your mindset and what you're capable of doing and how you can be productive and how you can feel like you're productive, which is an important part of not being burned out. And for me, it's multitasking. I love to do many, many things at the same time, but it doesn't necessarily work for everybody. And if I am focused on a task and then I feel like suddenly, oh yeah, it's not going as fast as I would, and I'm like a little stuck, like I'm stuck somewhere, I would then switch to another task and come back later, and it would help me just focus on things that I can be productive on in the moment. And eventually everything just move forward at different speed and I reach my goals. So that's how I deal with it. But yeah, everything else that has been said is also very important.
Yeah. We've got a question, and I think it's a nice one that I'll sort of pop in the right away in the order, and maybe all of you can answer it, because I think it'll give us a sense of these different careers and the areas of study. So the question is, what does a day in your job or study look like? What is a typical day, and what are the most and least enjoyable aspects of what you do? So kind of a big question, but I think it'll be nice to get a sense of what all of these different careers look like, or areas of study. Emily, would you like to go first?
Sure, I can. Yeah, so as a postdoctoral researcher, I do research all day. So in non-pandemic times. I would go to an office at school, and I'm a 100% computational researcher, so I don't do any bench work or anything like that. So I have a desk set up, and my research revolves around the p53 protein, which is relevant to cancers, deciding whether a cell is going to live or die. And so I use tools from math and computer science and biology to understand that protein in different ways. So I spend the day coding, looking at data that my colleagues have gathered, working in teams with people to work on projects together, giving feedback to my coworkers about the work that they're doing. We're a very interactive group, and so my day is mostly just working by myself and then working with others, kind of going back and forth. And I spend kind of just like a 9-to-5 day, essentially.
Maybe could I ask, for those, and maybe not everybody knows, could you describe what a postdoctoral researcher is?
So postdoc is the step after a PhD. So typically it's seen as a way to gain maybe an extra skill set, learn a new thing. They last anywhere from 2 to 6, 7 years, depending on your field. And it's kind of the in-between between grad school and becoming like a faculty or being a professor of some kind, or going to industry.
Great, thanks. Anybody else would like to go next? Maybe Ella, would you like to go next?
Yeah, my days are pretty varied. So I guess I'll talk about like the 2 different parts of my life right now. So as a student, I go to school for the full day, and then I get to do some like clinical skills things and like different parts of medical school. I'm just in the early years of medical school now, so it's primarily a lot of classroom work and not as much hands-on, but it'll shift over time, I'm sure. And then in my job, so I work with Genome BC, which is a company here in Vancouver, to make educational videos about science and the interactions between genomics and society for them. And so for those days, I work on making videos. I like film, edit, and script, and do some animations as well. And so this kind of brings it back to the comment earlier about using art skills in science. It's definitely something that I do a lot of the time when I'm working. And yeah, so that's, I guess, my typical day. And then the good and bad. I think the best part of my day is definitely being able to interact with patients and hear their stories. But I mean, studying is always tough. So that's probably one of the worst things. And then with videos, they can be really fun to make, but also very tedious. So that's sort of a little bit about my day.
Great. Yumna, would you like to go next?
Sure. So my day is not the same every day. For the most part, there's some level of consistency, but it varies very much. So a typical day, if you can call it typical, would involve a lot of meetings, which would be collaboration, let's say with our engineering team. It would revolve around some of the projects that we have. It would result in potentially, going to site as well to take a look at what's actually being built. Does it meet our design? Does it meet our specifications? Because we are fortunate enough to build coast to coast. Some of that requires flying out, whether it's to BC, whether it's to Nova Scotia, to check in on our projects, our project teams. How are they doing? How's the progress going? So it really does vary quite a bit in terms of what you're doing on any given day or where you're going. Sometimes you're required to just jump and go out on a whim because you have to be there. The client needs you there. So those are things that you have to consider as well. What I'd say would be the least favorite part of my job would be if anything ever goes wrong on site. And this can, like, for example, I guess use an actual example. When we were working on the Crosstown project, things like when we're testing the trains, and if a train, when we're testing it, derails because we need to test out every aspect of the job and it doesn't go exactly per the test plan. That puts us a bit backwards in terms of our plan. And so that can be quite disappointing because then you have to go through all the motions of paperwork. Why did this happen? How can we prevent it from happening? And going and doing that analysis. I'm fortunate enough to not have a site where anyone was significantly injured. That would be the worst part. And I've never experienced that and I don't intend to, I don't want to. And then the best part of my day is just kind of watching, as I said before, the things come to life. I'm really excited to see all the projects come to life because these things last, hundreds of years. So, I'm sure in my old age, when I'm, 60, 70, 80 years old, I'm going to get to be like, yeah, I built that entire community, downtown Toronto and that entire village or that entire line. And it'll be there, and it'll be there long after I'm gone too. So it's very exciting to leave that legacy behind.
Sure. Wow. Lori?
Yes. So I like to split my job in three parts. Like as an astronomer working at a telescope, I help anybody around the world to use our telescope. And so I'm specialized in the cameras that we have and how they can do science. So I help a lot of people that I don't necessarily know personally, but I contact them and they reach out sometimes to get more information there. So there's a lot of interaction to do there. And then we plan nights. So we make plans to make sure the telescope is pointing the right target at the right time, in the right way. And we validate data. We look at all of the data that we acquire, and then we make sure that it's in the database, and then we send it out so that people can do their science with it. And of course, I'm one of those observers. So I have my own science, I have my own projects, I do my science. I have a large program called Signals. We are a 70 researcher within it, but I coordinate it. I'm the principal investigator for it. So that's really challenging and fun. And I do also interact with a lot of people for it. And then there's a third part that is more like the cameras, the engineering part of it. When I was a PhD student, I was working on building camera that is now here in Hawaii on our telescope. And of course, most of my science is done with that camera. And I work with engineers and a lot of different special people that can help me make sure that the camera is functioning and that we can sometimes improve it. If I go for the best and the worst, the best is when everything works and that we can gather a lot of data, and the weather is with us. And the worst is when you have like a technical issue. And after all of the work that we do with all the people involved, we really want things to work out, and time on sky is very valuable, and we want to make the most of it. So sometimes we do have little things that pops out, a laser stopped working, or a new lens that we put in the camera is suddenly radioactive and we didn't know it. And we have radioactive particles in our detector and things like that. So those things happen, but even though they can be harsh and hard, we can go above it. And most of the time I'm in front of my computer. So you have to palliate a little bit with that. So I run, I paddle, I do other things, I go hiking.
Yeah, and maybe related to this question too, we have had the question, what has been your greatest challenge? And how have you overcome it, or over challenges, how have you overcome them? Like,
I'll say that one of the biggest things for me has been really believing in myself and believing that I am meant to do what I'm doing. It's very easy to convince yourself that you're not ready, that you shouldn't be doing science, that you're not capable of doing it. But really that's all in our heads, right? If we want to be doing something, we can do it. It's going to be a way. So really believing in yourself and knowing that you deserve to be where you are for all the work that you put into achieving your goals. I think, you may feel like that now as a student in high school. And, I can't say it goes away, but it does get better. You feel like much more assured of your abilities. if you just keep kind of working and working at that feeling.
Does anybody else want to add a challenge that they've experienced?
For me, it was just being as young as I am in the positions that I'm in. And so that always has, taken people a little bit aback in terms of, well, she doesn't look like how the rest of the people look like, or, she doesn't talk like how the rest of the people talk like, and the ideas are different, and this is scary because this is new. And you kind of have to stick through with it and continue and push on. And again, like Emily said, believe in yourself. And that's the biggest, factor to kind of pushing through these, because the world will always try to, go against you. You don't need to add yourself to the same category as everyone else. You need to be your cheerleader to push through it. And I have, it's been a challenge for sure, but I mean, it's been a fun one, because once you kind of get the understanding and people understand why you're here, what you represent, the ideas you're bringing, and see the successes in those, it's a great feeling. And you see your accomplishments, so it makes it all worth the while. And next time you might have to go through the same experience, and you often do, but you'll know that you have this track record if you just, stick to it. If you put your head down, get the work done, and you kind of ignore the noise. And ignoring the noise is a big thing that, you have to learn as part of it, because women are rare in these industries as well. So you're going to be faced with multiple challenges, and own it.
Yeah. Lori or Ella, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to echo what everyone else has said. I think that you just have to really try and believe in yourself. And there can be a lot of moments of doubt, but I guess knowing that you belong in the industry that you are interested in, and that someone will be willing to listen to your opinion, and sort of that you're making an impact is sort of what's been in my head as I've been going along my journeys, just making sure that you, keep that in mind.
Yeah, we have kind of, oh, sorry, go ahead, Lori.
Yeah, I was just going to say also don't be afraid of failure. Like if you try something and it doesn't work, it's not bad. And it doesn't mean you can't not try a second time or go and do something else like that is like similar. Like I think about that, because in our field you have to apply for grants, or even as a student, you have to apply for grants. And so if you get a bad review once, don't let that take you down. It's normal. It's okay. There's a lot of randomness into those process. Don't take it on your shoulder, and keep your head up and just try again. So that's one of my advice, and like obstacles and things like that.
Yeah, it's always amazing to me how fast these panel discussions go, because I'm like, oh my goodness, we're getting close to our last question. And I feel like I want to ask you guys so many more things. But someone has asked here, do you have an example of a situation in your field where, because maybe you have a different identity as being female and maybe everybody else in the room is male or something like that, where you've been able to contribute a unique perspective, like where you've brought something different to the table with that different background? Anybody experienced something like that? Or thought to themselves that was?
All of the time. I want to say, like, all of your ideas are unique. You're a unique person, whomever you are. And so your ideas are important at the table. Can I point at it, like one idea that is one idea that would be more associated with a woman than not really, but it's part of you, who you are. So I kind of want to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, being disabled has really changed the way that I think about my science. I'm physically unable to be in a lab, lifting things. I can't lift or use Bunsen burners. So I use computers, right? And so that changes the way that I think about how I want to answer questions. I think, okay, what can I do with the data I already have, right? How can I ask a new question, using data that somebody else gathered. So it really changes just the way I approach different questions. And I think the way I look at collaborations with people, I really value the people that collect data, right? So it really kind of shapes my interactions and my science in general.
Did anybody else want to add? All right, well, I think what we'll do now is I'll just give you each an opportunity. You know, there was quite a few questions we didn't quite get to, but just, you know, put yourselves in the shoes of maybe yourself as a high school student. What kind of advice would you want to offer your younger self, just as we go around to close? And maybe we'll start off in the with Yumna, and then.
For sure. So for me, the biggest item I think I found most important for me was just the fact that I was able to find a degree with a co-op. And I utilized all of my co-ops in various different sectors of the industry to be able to understand what I truly, where I truly fit, what makes sense to me, what aligns with my values. I made sure that all my co-ops were different for that reason, so that I could just explore. So if I'm a high school student, my advice to you is just explore the various opportunities. You don't have to know immediately right off the bat what you want to do, but just make it a point to put yourself in the mindset that goes, I'm going to try this today, and then tomorrow I'm going to try this, and the day after I'm going to try this, just to get a better understanding of what's out there and what aligns with you. You're very young, and it's a hard decision. You're not going to know 100%. And even as you become an adult, you're going to switch. You know, I've switched from construction to facilities to now technology, but that's just made me a better, well-rounded person to be able to deliver the projects that I get to, you know, fortunately deliver today. So you don't need to know, but please explore, and explore now while you have that ability to do so.
Thank you. Emily,
I think as a high schooler, I was really unsure about what my future was going to look like. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have a disabled person to look to say, oh, I know what I could maybe do. I know what this will look like. There wasn't anyone for me to point to. And so I did it anyway. And then I got to school and I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know how I was going to get through labs. And I have a lot of test anxiety. So sometimes my grades were really bad, right? And I was like, I don't know how to do this, but I just kept going. And so I think when you're in those kinds of situations where you just don't know what the future should look like for you, that's okay. And I think just keep going and look for people that share identities with you, and talk to them, and see how they've made decisions, or look for advice. Research, on the internet, like there's so much info available. But if all of that turns up nothing and you still don't know what it's going to look like, that's okay too. Just trying is really my best advice. For if there's something you want to do, give it a try.
that's great. Ella?
Yeah, so my advice would be to not be afraid to sort of share what you're interested in with the world. So what I did when I was 12 is I just started making videos, even though I had no idea what like a microscope slide was. I just thought that they were super cool. So I tried to make my own video about them. And so even though I wasn't like technically qualified to do it, it was something that I was really excited about. And I decided to share that with others. And I think that was sort of a turning point in my career, kind of sharing your excitement with the world will be received back to you. And so I just recommend that if there's something that you're excited, that you just go for. sorry, if there's something that you're excited about, you should just go for it, and don't really feel limited by where you are in your career or what you know currently, because there's always more to learn.
Lori?
Yes, maybe two things. So the first, if I remember when I was a high school student, I was doing different classes, chemistry, physics, math, biology. I decided to do physics, but it wasn't the class I was the best at. I remember, like, I was really good in chemistry, really good in math, but physics was hard and challenging to me, but that's why I liked it. And so don't necessarily look at the grades to follow, like to find what you like. It might be something different. And also, and I mentioned it before, but don't necessarily trust orientations sessions that people telling you what you would be good at doing or what they think you should be doing. Like, really follow your guts and just get onto that wave and follow it. And don't listen to people that would try to discourage you. And you're gonna get good at it with the years. You have so many years to go and so many things to learn. And grades are one thing, but for me, it really came up later when I was a master and PhD that my grade went up like very high because I really was exactly where I should have been. You know, I was doing what I liked, and then like the difference could be seen right away. So that would be my two advice.
Thank you guys so much. We've covered quite a few questions, and we've heard a lot of amazing stories. It's always very inspiring to hear the paths of the panelists and all the different work that they do. Thank you so much to the panelists. Thank you for your insights and your stories. And for those that have been watching today and submitting questions, thank you as well for submitting these great questions and keeping this discussion so lively. It was hard to keep up with all of them, and it was amazing. Before we close, I would like to welcome Linda Hasenfratz, the CEO of our presenting sponsor, Linamar. Linda joined Linamar in 1990 and has experienced all aspects of the business, including running a machine, engineering, and operations management. She's been watching the event online, and she's joined us now for some closing remarks. Over to you, Linda.
Thanks so much. Wow, that was just so incredible. I really enjoyed listening to every one of our panelists. Such great advice. I don't even know where to start. I love the discussion around the intersection of art, creativity, music, and science, technology, engineering, and math. I think Yumna brought it up, Emily brought it up. I think a lot of people think that you're either artsy or you're sciencey, if that's even a word. And I just think that isn't so at all. In fact, there's so many people I know in STEM who are incredibly creative and use that creativity and love of art to their advantage in project innovation, in communication, as was discussed. And I feel like that's a really great takeaway for all of you from our discussion. I also really like the advice that I think came from Lori and maybe Yumna also, to kind of ignore the voices in your head questioning whether you do or don't belong. Like, just don't worry about that. Don't focus on that. Focus on making connections, on staying confident in who you are and what your capabilities are, and driving that change yourself going forward. And certainly that's how I have always approached this issue of, you know, maybe being one of the minority of women versus men in the room. I knew I was capable. I knew I had the ability to do the job that I was doing. And I always felt like if you look for bias in other people, you'll find it. So just don't look for it, right? Like, be confident, be capable, and just get down to business. If you ignore that sort of unspoken bias and you're capable, I feel like everybody else pretty quickly forgets about it as well. And I feel like the panel had a lot of that to share. And I hope the panel has you all thinking a little bit more about the idea of pursuing studies and a career in STEM. I did. I have a degree in science and chemistry, and I have found it invaluable in my career as I've moved around. And there was a question early on in the panel about advice. What advice do you have, you know, when you're trying to decide what to study? And I always say, think about three things. One, pick an area of study, obviously, that interests you, that you're naturally curious about it and enjoy learning. And good advice just now from Lori, that I think it was Lori, that it doesn't have to be your top mark. research what jobs you could get, right, with that, having studied in that area, just so you know, just so you have some ideas. And like, what can you earn with those jobs? And does it match the lifestyle that you envision, right? A couple of things, it's like a little pathway that you map out that is a potential pathway. And I feel like STEM really checks all those boxes. It's super fascinating. There's tons of jobs. There's great earning potential. And, and this came up on the panel as well. I think that just because you've done that research, you've checked those boxes and you've got yourself a bit of a pathway mapped out, that you'll find that you don't have to be committed to that. Like, you can take those right and left turns along the way. And I feel like if you pick something like STEM to study in, that there's just so many options for you. And then you just see where life takes you. And I feel like sometimes when I've seen people who've made a lot of those right and left turns, that it actually gives them an experience and an education that's very unique, right? It's unique to them and makes them uniquely qualified to do what they end up doing. The panelists talked a lot about, how many women there are in STEM and how do they handle that. And I'm really pleased to tell you that actually the numbers are growing substantially. Like, if I look at the numbers of women in engineering, in science today compared to 25 years ago, we're at least 20 times. I look at some universities, University of Toronto engineering program is 42% women. That's fantastic. And they've been over 40% for actually several years. And they're not alone. University of Waterloo, Western University, University of Guelph, all of them are seeing more and more women enrolling in engineering and in other STEM programs. And I think that's awesome because there's just so many great career opportunities. Women in STEM jobs earn 35% more than their counterparts that aren't in STEM. They earn 40% more than non-STEM men. So lots of exciting jobs, momentum building. And I think we really just need to share those stories. So a great example of how you can share the stories is some initiative actually that we started at Linamar back in 2018. We call it See It, Be It, STEM It. And it is designed to encourage more young women into science and engineering studies through the use of role models. Josh is showing you our website here. We'd love to have you visit our website, seeitbeitstemit.com. So we created this website and we're sharing at this point like almost 300 stories of inspirational women in a variety of STEM careers. And every year, for 4 years running now, we just kicked off year 5 planning. We create this awesome calendar where we feature 12 of our role models to kind of keep the story going all year long. And we're trying to get them in classrooms so that teachers can every month, you could meet a new awesome role model in STEM, learn about different jobs you can do. So it's pretty exciting. In the last 4 years, we've printed and distributed 70,000 calendars to young women across Canada to try and inspire them into a STEM career. So I just want to show you a short video about the initiative. So Josh is going to just scroll down and get that queued up to tell you a little bit more about what it's all about. And I hope our panelists will all sign up.
You got what I need. Tested by the passion. Loving this devotion.
See It, Be It, STEM It is an initiative we started at Linamar a few years ago designed to attract more young women into science, trades, technology, engineering, and math through the use of role models.
Most days, if you were to Google the word engineer, you will find a lot of white men in hard hats, and that is definitely not me. So I think that the way that I often joke that the most radical thing I'll ever do in this space is just exist as an engineer, because I think representation is so important and just being able to see yourself. And it's not that they need to go into these roles, it's just that these are options on the table for them, because that was something I didn't really understand growing up until I kind of accidentally ended up in engineering.
STEM is such a vast, broad field that I truly believe that if it's something you're passionate about, you will find your path and you will find what you love. And so my advice would be to chase that passion and to not let anything stop you.
just follow your heart and do what feels right, and do what feels right at the moment. Don't worry about what's going to happen 20 years from now. Just take each day as it comes and follow your heart.
I think young people can change the world because they absolutely have so much passion and so much motivation, and no matter what the world tells you, if you believe in something and if you're passionate about something, do it. Even if it's to cure cancer, and if you think you can do it, then do it. Never let anyone tell you that you can't. That's my advice.
So again, I would love to have our role models sign up. If you guys know other people in STEM, other women in STEM, we would love to, we're always looking for a new role model. So sign up. If any of you would like calendars, we would love to send them to you. Any teachers on the line, please let us know. Happy to get some calendars out to you. So I better wrap it up. I see we're a little over time. I hope you've been inspired towards a career in STEM. You're sitting in the heart of an area where there's an incredible concentration of science, technology, engineering, math, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, AI and machine learning. So many exciting things that are happening. Please be part of it, and really thrilled to be here again and sponsoring. So with that, back over to you, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Linda. Certainly and I'll just say the calendars are so beautiful, and it's so great to see them, and there's so many great stories in them. I'd also like to thank Linamar for their ongoing support of women in science and as presenting sponsor of this event. This is the end of our event, but it's not the end of our activities. Those of you that registered to attend, you're going to receive a follow-up email with details of other student opportunities such as workshops and summer programs. Definitely also check out our outreach page on perimeterinstitute.ca. And there's also many other fantastic International Day of Women and Girls in Science activities that are coming out of other outreach and science organizations around the world. So be sure to explore those opportunities as well. Thank you again to our panelists for sharing their experiences. Hopefully we'll see you again, and maybe one day even have you at PI to visit. So yeah, thank you everyone, and have a great evening, and wherever you may be.